Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And today I will be discussing Outlander, Season 8, Episode 8, In the Forest. Let's go. All right, and welcome back, my dear friends. Welcome to another recap and review of Outlander. So thank you to everyone who tuned in last week. I'm planning to also release this episode early, and I will try to do that for probably the rest of the run of the show. I know we're all, excited, I feel like is the wrong term at this point after how things have went awry, but I just feel like we're all needing that space to discuss. And I really appreciate all the very thoughtful and passionate comments from last week from the majority of all of you. As I will always stand by those of you who A, don't like it that I get emotional about my favorite fictional story of all time, B, think that book readers should just shut up about what things are changed, and C, those of you who just are here to be nasty and are maybe a troll and aren't listening to this anyway. You guys can go shove it. I will get emotional about whatever the F I want to. Okay, I've been getting emotional about Outlander for 10 years now. And if you don't appreciate how I talk about that here or how it brings up emotion in me, then I don't want you in my community. Okay, you don't have to get as emotional as me. That's all right. But you're not going to shame me or anyone else who's very attached to this show. Okay, and I stand by as well. I understand that the show and the book are two separate things. Okay, I know that. And I appreciate it. That is not the purpose of the type of recaps and reviews I do, okay? I, as a book lover who knows that this show is an adaptation of the content in the books, it's an adaptation of it, and they, for the most part, have followed most of the storylines very accurately, though they've made their twists and turns through the years, to act like it doesn't hurt a part of us when they change things we deeply love just because you think we should get over it. I don't give two figs about it, okay? And I don't care that I'm being a little nasty in the beginning. There's some very nasty things said to me every time I do one of these. People just can't let it go. If I'm not the type of recap that you want, go find another one. But I'm a book focused recapper. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. That's why I love this. I can appreciate the show for what it is, and then there are times when I don't. Now, the second track to this is that I had plenty of you in my comments who have not read the books, or have not read this far in the books, or are just plumb confused and don't remember how the books did it, who hated the storylines that happened last week. Right? You don't have to be a book reader to want to know a book reader's opinion on it and or wonder if you missed on something or whatever, right? And I have plenty of people, just check the comments in that video, who say, I'm just a show watcher and I hated this. I'm just a show watcher and I don't understand, right? So my channel is a place we can both come together. So if you are just a show watcher, but you want to know a book reader's opinion, or if you are a book reader and want someone to commiserate with, that is where I stand. And I will continue to start my videos off by reminding you of that because I won't be bullied. You will just be poof, deleted from my channel. And I did that with plenty of people last week, but I also welcomed a ton of new people in, right? Because there was plenty of people who have never watched me before, but because of how crazy last week's episode was, we were watching what everyone had to say about it, right? And I did the same thing. I discovered 5 different podcasts last week, or recappers, who do this, particularly one that is, what is it? Shoot, now it just went out of my brain. Unhinged Outlander podcast. Love those ladies over there. Loved their thoughts and opinions, and they are definitely more learned about the books than even I am, because I have corrections I have to issue all the time when I do these because I miss stuff or I don't remember it as well, and those ladies are on top of it, and I loved it. I actually went back and watched all of their recaps for the whole season after watching their recap of the horrendous episode last week. So anyway, just starting my video off with that reminder that if any of the things that I said bother you in these first 5 minutes, you can go. And you don't got to leave a comment when you do. You can quietly exit the room, you can exit the video, and you can go. Because you can disagree with me, absolutely. We had lots of disagreement with me, but it was all done in a respectful way, and we had some great conversations back and forth. That is the purpose of these recaps, okay? I want to know what people are thinking, and that's why I continued to do these for years when hardly anyone was watching, because of the conversations people would want to have about it, right? So you are more than welcome to disagree. That's not what I was getting heated about, just so you know. It's the people who were saying, well, book readers need to chill out, or I don't understand what you expect, or why are you getting so uptight about this? And I'm like, you don't have to start your sentence with that. You can just get to the point of what you disagree with me about without insulting me or the other viewers before you do it, right? You can just say, as someone who just watches the show, I don't agree. I think they're following a story I really like. I'm enjoying everything, right? There was people who said that, and I gave their comment a heart, and I was like, I'm so glad you are still enjoying it, right? There was no conflict that needed to be had, but there consistently are these people who try to shove their thoughts on it down my throat. And I'm like, you chose to come here. You chose to click on this video and stay here. And if what I was saying was ignoring you, you are a little bit too caught into the rage bait culture, okay? And you need to chill, because we won't be doing that in my comments. Sometimes I will sassily comment back to you. I had someone say that it was disgraceful that I was crying about a fictional story. And I sassily said back, I'm sorry you're a heartless hoe bag. No, I didn't say hoe bag. Made that up just now. But I said, I'm sorry you're heartless and aren't moved by these, but fiction is meant to move us to emotion. Good fiction does. It doesn't mean you cry from that emotion. I cry all the time, okay? I cry about everything. Fictional, actually. I don't really cry much in real life, but I do for fiction. And I just won't be bullied. And so I will probably clap back, and then I will delete you from my channel. And so you'll never hear from me again, and you can keep giving me the views, and I don't have to deal with you. So that's how the block button works. But anyway, these first 7 minutes were just me getting off my chest. I also know I'm not the only one, because a few of the other ladies' podcasts I watched, they have been getting a lot of hate too when they disagree. And it made me laugh, because I was like, oh, wow, camaraderie there. I feel it. So before we fully get into everything, let me do a small correct the record section. I didn't have to do this every week, but in this one I did, because I had some people comment on it, and so I looked it up. And so I just have a small correct the record, and then we will get into the recap, because there was, I'm probably going to label this episode something like lipstick on a pig or something like that, because there were some course corrections that I thought were really good, but I just feel like everything's so beyond the pale of what we're doing that it was just hard to enjoy myself, even when there was scenes that I've wanted to see for years. It was just hard to enjoy myself. It was difficult. But a small correct the record. So I pretty vehemently said in the last one that William does not know Lord John's sexuality. So this whole track of him finding out the way that he did and then reacting the way he did is absolute bullshit. Now, I 98% stand by what I said, but I had someone comment that it is told to William what his father might be, and that he does know about it. And then again, watching some other recaps of people, there was also Doreen on the Outlandish podcast pointed out that William has kind of pieced it together, but it was never in a confrontation, not a confrontation with John, but he was never confronted with evidence. It's only been rumor and conjecture. So I went and did a little digging on some Outlander forums, and I looked up, and that does seem to be more what it is, that William has heard some rumors through the years. And then there is also some info that Richardson gives him that is saying that his father is gay, that he has heard these things now. But I do stand by what I said, that he has never been confronted with it as in catching his dad with anyone. He would never be that indiscreet. Lord John is one of the most discreet characters in the entire show. Like, he lives and dies by that. No exaggeration. So I am still deeply offended for John And honestly, a little for William, because it makes him look like such a little shit. And we're going to be dealing with the fallout of that in this episode as well. When he confronts his father about this, calls him a slur, and then, books it out of there. I still stand by that. That is not book accurate at all. That's not how it goes down. But I guess for my correct the record, I could say it can be implied that William is maybe putting the pieces together. But even in some other things I've seen, like William doesn't fully believe that, and he hasn't talked to his father and or called him a name and or confronted him about it in this manner at all. So maybe we'll still see that happen in the book. I don't know, but I'm highly doubtful about it. So there was my little correct the record. Let us get into this recap for In the Forest. Now, just another note, I actually, I'm filming this on Saturday evening, and I'm going to try to drop it as soon as I get it edited right after this. But I had to watch this one at my sister's house, because I was there visiting my nieces, and so I have her notebook that I took pages from to do my notes. And then I also couldn't get it on the big TV, so I had to watch it on my tablet. But I still took my diligent notes. So let's get into my recap. So the first scene we have is a cold open at the grave site for Fergus on the ridge. We have Marcelly all in black, and we have Jamie standing there beside her. And right off the bat, Marcelly is saying, I'm thinking of taking Percy up on his offer and use the money that he's offering to rebuild the print shop. And she says how Fergus thought it could somehow be used against the cause, but she wants to use it to fight, to keep, to rebuild it for her children, and to keep Fergus's dream of fighting with the pen alive. She also goes into this little bit of monologue about she wants what America wants. She wants to be free, and so that is something she wants to keep fighting for. And Jamie says he agrees that she should take the money, but she admits that Fergus was worried about it. And she twists it a little bit, though. I'm really not... By the way, Lauren Lyle, of course, is the best fucking part about any of the stuff that's gone on with Fergus. She is the best part of it all. I just wanted to... Her acting is insane. The way she's shown just how she's, like, aged in the time since Fergus died as well. That is something grief does to you. Like, no other, like, not to call... But, like, the bags under her eyes. Also being, she had been so... like free and soft with Fergus. We'd seen her be in the city, right? Her hair was down a lot more, and now we're seeing that really like strict difference of, hair up in the cap again. It's not that she never worn the cap, but I mean, in those last few episodes, she had her hair down so much, and she just looked so young again with him, right? And now you can just see the years and the age on her after this, right? But anyway, she explains to her father, like, he didn't want to have to accept, and I wish they honestly would have said this to make it clear to viewers too, that yes, he had talked about how, like, he didn't need to know who his real father was. James Fraser was his father. Well, a big part of that is like, he would need to accept the Beauchamp name and become Fergus or Claudel Beauchamp to, get this. And, Marcelly says to Jamie, like, he wanted to keep your name. He didn't want to do that. And so this leads Jamie to say, Fergus Fraser was my son of my name and of my heart, now and forever, and no piece of paper can change that. So Jamie says that, which leads her to say, it's decided. I'm going to take the money. And then she asks Jamie to please leave. She wants some time alone with her husband. And she says, did you hear that? You're Fraser forevermore. And she says, I'll take the money and take care of your bairns and the bairn yet to come. So there's the reveal that we all, like, everyone knew was coming. That's why they showed a love scene in the last episode, truly, besides to twist it in. And she says, I could curse you for it. Oh, not starting too early. But I'm so happy to have more of you. You know, which is calling back to that line where when she said to Bree, all that's left is ashes and bones. And Bree said, but his children, he's in every one of his children. And so that's her saying, I'm happy to have more of you. Again, Lauren Lyle is the only thing that makes this shit bearable about what's going on with that plotline, okay? That's all I'll say. And then, to be honest, we never talk about Fergus again. At least in this episode. Don't see anybody really grieving anymore. And that is just a disgrace to me. I'm sorry. It's awful. But we have our intro. And the little, like, cut scene at the end of it shows someone making a fly for fishing-wise. So, we're on the ridge still. For all of this, assume we're on the ridge. Unless I'm talking about Lord John, by the way. But in my notes, I had to find a new way to note it because at one point we were all over the place here. So anyway, we have Roger and Bree unloading the guns. We're now seeing that, I think in this scene's the first one you see, like, we're going to show that Bree is pregnant now and show some progression. But Bree talks about how, they mention Ferguson, and apparently there is a certain type of rifle that will get named after Ferguson. I think that's what I'd heard. I do, pardon me if I misspeak that. That's what it sounded there. But anyway, they're looking at the guns, and Bree mentions that there's an upgrade that can be made to these weapons, and I thought that was a cute moment. We will get to see some cool stuff with that. And it leads Roger to saying there's a reason her nickname was Deadeye. And Jamie's like, really? Where's that nickname come from? And, you know, she explains that her father taught her to shoot. And that was a nickname that he called her. And then I love Roger so cute about it. Just, he's so all about, like, my wife in this episode. And I loved it. So then we cut away to Jamie and Claire are now talking, and he says this book was dedicated to Bree because in the show, the book says, for my dearest Deadeye. And Jamie didn't know who that was until now hearing that that was Bree's nickname. And so that leads Claire and Jamie to assume this book was for Bree, and it was a warning what was going to happen to him. So then Jamie brings up that he used to pray for Frank. And Claire's like, well, why ever would you do that? And she's like, well, I knew I was sending him and our bairn back to you. And so I needed to pray for him so that he would take care of you well, which I love that this gets brought up, even though I have some problems with the situation that it's brought up in, which I'll get to later here. But I like this because this is something you see in the books a lot. You'll see him say a prayer for Frank particularly when they show the time when he's not with Claire and Jamie. And it brings up too that he does like speak to Frank's ghost at different times, even before this stuff that's happening in this book, because he is grateful. He's very grateful to Frank, even while he curses him, right? And so in this, seeing that this book is for Bree, he's trying to say that, he wrote this for her. This causes Claire to bring up, he may have known you were alive this whole time, but if he had kept this from me, I became a surgeon because I went back. And if I wouldn't have went back, I wouldn't have those skills. And what if those skills I've learned allow me to save you at King's Mountain? So we're just straight up saying it. We're just putting it out there. I think most of us have known that ever since Claire came back 10 years ago at this point, that her being a surgeon now is so helpful. Like, what have we seen her do? She's tried to make penicillin. She's known, like, there's all these surgeries. She knows how to do all these things. Like, we know that, but we're apparently, like, calling it out, which is fine. But she also points out, like, Bree learned to hunt and shoot. She was basically prepared for this time. And maybe he wasn't looking for you or me. He was looking for her. Like, I don't know. Weird stuff. So, anyway. All right, so then we go to Savannah and we show John and Amaranthus, and he's working and she comes in to ask if he's seen William. And John says, well, William's kind of mad at all of us right now. And, you know, hopes that he will forgive them. And John says, we can only hope that he will. And so I think John also mentions that he's sending a letter to his home in another place too, to see if he's there. I can't remember where it is, but he looking for him and they haven't seen him. So then we go to the Ridge, though, and we see Jamie reading the book, and we hear some voiceover from Frank saying in his head that you have this many months to prepare, so do your best, basically is what Frank's saying. So then we have literally a training montage. We show Bree working on the gun plans. We show Jamie training his militia, and we're preparing. We see that Rachel and Ian have returned with Totus. Don't get a scene about them meeting him at all or anything. Nope, we just know that they're there. There's literally there's a montage of Claire holding Augie, who apparently he's still a baby, though they've been gone for months. He's still baby. And Totus is there. And again, never see them again for the rest of the episode, but they're there. Okay, then we have a scene with Buck and Roger. Now, this one's very interesting, and I will definitely have some more to say about this in the comparison part. But we have a scene of Buck and Roger together chatting. And so Buck is kind of filling Roger in now that Roger's back, right? Which I wish they would have shown the scene of him seeing Buck for the first time. Would have been cool. But either way, Buck is saying what happened. So he says at first he spent some time with Galis because he wanted to get to know her better. Who, remember, Galis is his mother. And he saw Dougal quite a bit because Dougal was coming around Galis, right? But he realized that Galis started to have amorous feelings towards him. And Dougal thought that Galis had amorous feelings towards him. So it wasn't really safe for him to stick around anymore. And he wasn't ready to go back to his, time because he thinks he would just cause problems for his wife, though the man has kids, and apparently abandoning his kids is okay with him. That's a weird thing we're not supposed to think about. Sure, your wife maybe has moved on, but whatever. I guess it also could be said because his death is recorded as the year before. Maybe if he were to be, I don't know what the reasons are supposed to be, whatever. But anyway, he leaves the 1729 is when they're there, right? Or no, 1740. I can't remember the time he's there. It wouldn't be the 1729. It'd be whenever he's there. Whenever. He leaves and he ends up back in 1980 is the point. This is where we need to get to. And he ends up seeing Rob Cameron. And so he follows Rob Cameron, and Rob has a gemstone. He had Roger's book on time travel, and he was dressed in old-fashioned clothing like he was planning to come back. And so without a hide nor hair of it, without thinking about it too much, Buck kills Rob because he's like, this man can travel. He knows too much about it, and he got the gemstone. I'm not taking any chances here. So he kills him. And then he takes his stuff, takes his hat, and now he has a gemstone, and he travels to, which we don't know the rest of the story of this, because remember, he's in Scotland, and they're in America, so anyway, whatever. That's supposed to be the answer to our Rob Cameron stuff. And we'll close that lid of that box, I guess. So there's that. Then we go to Bree, and she has finished the gun she was working on. And she is definitely looking more pregnant now, too. And she's showing off the gun to the guys, and it definitely loads and fires much faster. And this is another scene of Roger being like, it's my wife. So very nice scene. Then, though, we have William arriving on the Ridge. Okay, so he isn't hiding out at one of his family estates. He's come to the Ridge, and Fanny is so happy to see him. All right, she doesn't immediately tell him, guess what? I'm your niece or anything. We don't jump into that pit of vipers, I guess. Whatever. But Fanny's happy to see him. Jamie's so happy to see him. And then William asks to see Bree. And he's being very cold to Jamie. He asks to see Bree. So then we have William and Bree sitting together, which is actually a very sweet scene. I have no problems with this. This is beautiful. Where he's filling her in on Amaranthus and everything that went down. And he says he had just really been struggling with this information and he wanted to talk to the only family member who's never broken my trust. Then we have a big old family dinner. And this was the scene, I'll be honest, that was making me a little irritated. And I know I'm not the only one because, again, I watched a couple recaps. It irritated me that we're just all so happy. Like, Rachel and Ian are back. William, the real blood son, is here. And it's like we haven't lost anyone at all. You know, I don't know. It's just so frustrating. It feels like we lost Fergus, but now William's here. And he's Jamie's blood son. So, like, that's better, I guess. I don't know. It just frustrates me. But we have the dinner and we show William talking to Rachel and Ian. And he actually does a toast. And then we have Roger announce that he got his letter to be a minister. So he's going to have his ordination and there's going to be another minister coming to, you know, officiate him finally getting full status as that. Then when they're doing dishes after, Jamie invites William to go fishing with him. And basically Bree and Roger kind of trick him into doing it as well. And it's actually cute because William is like, thanks so much. And they're like, you're welcome together, which is very cute. So then we have them fishing together. And at first they're like reminiscing a bit and Hellwater gets brought up. And there's a place that Jamie had actually fished there before as well. And then they're kind of joking with each other and William ends up saying, you could ask my father about if he's telling the truth about something. And that leads them to him saying, I've had a falling out with my father. And Jamie's kind of like waiting for it to hit. And he says it again. He says he's an indiscreet sodomite, which again, that is apparently a retcon of the show because it's not true. Okay, neither the indiscreet is not true. This leads Jamie to saying, though, which was very beautiful. He says, John's life is his personal affair, and I'll neither defend nor condemn it. But he's one of the best men that I know, and you know, is basically like, and he's loved you for so long. He's given you everything. He's made sacrifices for you. And William, again, still very much struggling with this, is like, he's given me everything but the truth. And so he shoves his fishing pole at Jamie and he tromps out of the water, which is hard to do in waist deep or water there. Now we have William and it looks like he's preparing his horse to leave. So he made this huge trip out here and now he's just gonna leave because he's like, why am I even here? And Claire walks out to him. And she asks, are you leaving without saying goodbye? And he gets a bit sassy with her. And I love this because she's like, we're not going to stand here trading barbs with me. She says, you came here to see Jamie and you might say it's for other reasons, but you came here to see him. And this could be your last chance. There's a war here and your father has men to lead into battle. And so what if this was the last time that you talk to him? Like, are you okay with how you're ending things? And so he happens to kind of like glance around and he sees Jamie teaching Amanda to ride. And it makes him remember the scene. This episode has a couple of those flashbacks, but it shows the scene of him when he's teaching Willie how to ride, you know, using the lead line. And it makes him smile and like remember him a bit, you know. So then we have a scene of Fanny and Rachel. And we have Fanny being upset and Rachel asking her what's up. And she doesn't say what's up. Sorry, I threw that in there. Ask her what's wrong. And Fanny says that there's some boys who were teasing her about Jane. They had found the article, which that's a bit weird to me. I'm just being honest, that they found the article way out on the ridge. Like, I'm sorry. How did this article just end up widely spread when it was in, like, Philadelphia that Ian had to go to find this? Like, we're just getting Philadelphia papers way out here. Like, anyway, it was just weird to me. But anyway, they were saying that she's in hell, and because she'd murdered someone and then killed herself, she wasn't in heaven. Rachel, being very sweet though, because I guess she had punched one of the boys, she's like, violence rarely brings peace. And she encourages Fanny to speak to Roger about the matter, because he's being ordained in this, and I bet he has some thoughts on it. So then we cut to Savannah, another quick one of John. And so John receives a letter from Percy saying that in 3 days' time, come to my offices. I know where Richardson is going to be. So just setting up where this all is going, but he's received the letter. So then we go into the forest for this scene, and Jamie is training the men and teaching them strategy, and William ends up stopping by to see Jamie. And before he can ask what he means to ask him, though, Mr. Whitaker arrives with some other black men. And they explain that Ferguson had burned a village of free men who refused to join his army. And they ask to fight with Jamie. And Jamie is very honored by this. He says, thank you, we're happy to have you. And they're going to, I guess, be training with him now as well. And then William asks Jamie to go hunting with him. And it's very cute how he keeps saying in the forest. And of course we'd be hunting in the forest. So their title gets said about 4 times. Because then Jamie, when he walks away, says, I will go hunting with you in the forest tomorrow morning. So then we have the scene of Roger and Fanny. And I love this, you guys. I don't know if I've shared on here, but one of my favorite old hymns of all time is Be Thou My Vision. And so the fact that Roger was singing that, because he's trying to pick a song for his ordination, but a line in there had to do with his sons or like the Lord's sons or something. And Fanny just jumps right into it. She's like, does God care about his daughters? And if he does, why would what happened to my sister happen? And he ends up making this comparison to his ordination is the sword that he will fight with, how did he word it? I don't remember, but he makes some point about his ordination being like his sword, like being a minister is like his sword to fight. That's how he'll do it. But she doesn't end up asking him the question that she had. She leaves before asking it. All right. So now we get to the meat of the episode. I truly love this scene so much. Again, it was a bright spot in an episode of a lot of things just being shoved quickly, like that we're running over. But they shoot an elk, and so Jamie says a prayer over the elk. And while he is doing that, William is kind of like really uncomfortably pacing behind. And then Jamie makes a joke about like, are you going to help me dress it down? Are you too good to help me gut it and everything? And William asks for forgiveness for how he talked to him. And of course, Jamie wants to be like, you don't need to. And he's like, no, I do. And Jamie says, I will gladly accept your apology. And then William finally spills what he's been holding in for so long. And he's like, I looked you up at Hellwater. I looked up to you at Hellwater. I wanted to be like you. I loved you and you left me. And he says, I'm your son. How could you leave me? And Jamie says, I loved you too, but I had nothing to give you. he says, like, you know, he lists all the things that he was a prisoner, that he had no money, that he had no place to take you, he had no estate, he had none of those things. And he said, I couldn't condemn you to a life of pain. And one of the things Willie said too, he's like, and when you left, you wouldn't even look at me. And that was so just like heartbreaking to him as a young man. And Jamie says too, he says, I regretted it for years. And if I would have looked back, I wouldn't have had the resolve to leave, and I had to. It was what was best for you. And he says to him, he says, I'm deeply sorry for how it was revealed to you, and I hope that you will forgive me. And then William hugs him and sobs. He hugs his dad and sobs. And it is this scene between these two, you guys. I will rewatch this scene forever. It is so good. It's so well done. It's absolutely beautiful. I loved it so much. To me, it really was the pinnacle of so many things. And to get that closure and to get that like beautiful moment there, I just love it so much. And even though, again, to me, it is slightly tarnished by the fact it feels like Jamie's first son, the son of his name and his heart, we've killed him off for no reason. And now he's getting reconnection with his blood son. I just don't like how that feels. I'm saying it. I don't care. This moment is beautiful, but it would have been just as beautiful if Fergus was still alive. Jamie has room in his heart for all of his children, and it just is spoiled a bit for me. And I'm sorry, I can't undo that. I know other people will, and this moment is beautiful, but because it is like something so non-book accurate had just happened and changed my feelings on that, I just can't undo the upset that I have. I just can't. I'm sorry. But it's a beautiful scene, nonetheless. Okay, then we go to church and we're singing Be Thou My Vision, and everyone's at church together. And now this is so cute. Okay, I'm saying it. Right after that hug, we see William and Jamie standing by one another, singing in church, and by Claire. And so like all of Roger's family is here. Buck is here. The people from the Ridge are here, and they're singing this song. And while they're singing though, Fanny pokes her head into the church. And then she leaves and doesn't stay. And Roger notices. And so afterwards, Roger goes to find Fanny. And she says, I wasn't welcome there. My sister wasn't welcome in this church. And she says, Jane's in hell now. And now they kind of have this bit of a philosophical discussion, which I think is good because Fanny is young, and also I don't know how much of religion she's actually looked into, or which religion she was looking into, or what she's feeling, but that's definitely the Catholic way who believes that. And one thing Roger points out is that the church is made up of people, and many of the rules that govern it are made up by men. And so he really encourages her, and I think this is really beautiful. He encourages her to ask God yourself what he places on your heart as the truth, and that be open to God answering you is what he says. And I thought that was a really beautiful way to do it, because one thing I love about Roger, I adore him, is that he is a minister and a guide and a loving comfort to many people throughout the years that he is going down the track of minister. But he's still very much a human man, and he still very much doesn't have all the answers, and he never pretends to. Even when he gets ordained, like, he's not like, oh, now I have all the answers. He's just there to guide and comfort people and be that authority that they can seek out in that time. But he isn't telling her one way or the other. And you could say that's him trying to have an out, but I think he also genuinely believes that, that we can't know what was on someone's heart when any certain situation happened, right? So then she thinks about that, and she ends up going to the cairn, as we've seen her go many times, and she tells Jane about the conversation with Roger, and she asks for a sign. And then when she goes down to the riverbed to get a rock to put on the cairn, she sees a very beautiful stone, which to us, it looks like a raw gemstone, is what it seems like. And when Fanny picks it up, it actually cracks in her hand and burns it. And then she hears the buzzing. And we all know what that means. Fanny has traveler ability. All right, and then we end off this episode with Lord John arriving at Percy's office, and he's been pacing, and Percy's like, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. Percy seems very nervous, and he says, so you found Captain Richardson? And Captain Richardson answers, coming through the door and knocking John out. And that is the end of our episode. So, quite the situation there, okay? So I don't want this episode to be overly long here, but let's get into a few main changes. Now, I want to try not to go off on full tangents this time, but there are a few main things that irritate me. There also are a few changes that I liked, and or we do not fully know they won't be in the book, because there is some things in this episode that if they are to happen, they haven't happened yet in the book because of timeline, because they've messed some things around. So let me go into the comparison changes here. So the big thing, let's just get it out of the way, right? The first scene before the intro. What I like to on the Unhinged podcast is one of the ladies pointed out that what'll be nice is going forward, you can just skip episode 7 and the first scene of this one and just pretend that none of that happened to Fergus if you want to. And to be truthful, that's true, because again, we never talk about Fergus again for the rest of this episode. And I hate that, okay? Where was a scene of telling, like, anyone, like even Rachel didn't know, like all these things. It just irritates me. But again, that doesn't take away from Lauren Lyle's acting. I suspected she was pregnant. Her and Fergus have 2 more kids. They have twins. We'll see if she has twins by the end of this. But her taking the money, I don't know what's going on. One thing I am wondering in my head, and again, this is speculation. I don't know if at a point, when we will try to rescue John, if maybe Fergus will pretend that he wants to get the money to force some people to reveal themselves. That's something I thought of the other day, is like Fergus has in the book very clearly rejected this. But what if in coming up with a plan to, stop what's happening to John, maybe they will pretend he's going to take it? I don't know. But it seemed like a sure thing that she was going to take the money for the kids. And that is Codswallop, whatever we call it. Another change, William comes to the Ridge very early, okay? So as I don't know if I've mentioned this, but what causes William to go to the Ridge is actually his father being kidnapped. And he doesn't know for a while, actually. John is actually gone for a good little bit before it gets to William that he's been kidnapped. Before he's told, what the purpose of his father being taken is, which I don't want to get into in this one because I think we were going to talk about it in the next episode, so I'll hold off. But he knows he needs Jamie's help. And so it's actually the very last scene of Bees is William ending up on the Ridge and saying, let me get to it here, saying, "Sir, I need your help." That is the very last scene of this book. And so William does go to the Ridge, but we don't see him there. Now, one thing I'll point out, if you are someone who follows Diana Gabaldon on Facebook, she posts little snippets as she writes. And there are quite a few scenes she already has on her website of seeing William at the Ridge. There's a scene of him shaving, and he's using Jamie's implements to shave. And it's a really cute scene, honestly, of him like, oh, this is that, like what he smells like, and just some things. There's a scene of him holding baby Davy, the baby that Bree and Roger will have, and being an uncle there. So we have seen some scenes of what it will be like with him at the Ridge. And I do feel like the representation we see of that in the show is pretty good to me. The difference being he's not there to talk to Bree about how pissed he is at his two dads. He's there to ask his biological father for help saving his adopted father. And remember, Jamie and John, they still haven't made up after everything that happened. And so Jamie hasn't directly spoken with John since he's left, right? And so, he's being asked by William to help, and we don't know how that will all play out yet. I mean, I'm sure Jamie's going to help him, but I mean, we don't know how that's all going to play out yet. So the scene of him, being super cold to Jamie and then confronting him about these things, like none of that stuff has happened. Jamie and William, I'm sure, still have more to say between them, but they're also at a little better place in the book than they are in the show. The last time they see each other too, having to do with Jane, and everything. So just none of that has happened yet. Will it happen? We don't know, but it hasn't happened yet. Also, we don't know about Buck yet either. So this stuff with him, though it does feel like it all just got tied up very nicely or whatever, I'm okay with that. I don't need to see scenes of it happening. And one of the things in the book we are worried about is if Rob Cameron's going to show up. We don't know the fate of Buck fully yet. So this could be a thing that happens, but they truncate it in the show to wrap it all up, and I was honestly fine with it. You guys tell me. I was fine with this scene happening. Again, I don't know whether it'll be truthful or not. The last time we see Buck is in when they leave to come here, so we have no idea what's happened to Buck. We don't know where he is. So the explanation of what he did is fine. One difference, though, I will say, the show seems to be implying that he doesn't mess around with his mother. In the books, he absolutely messes around with Galis. It happens. So, he definitely has, slept with his mother or at least kissed her. He for sure kisses her and stuff. So I can see why Dougal was maybe feeling a bit jealous. Okay, then, the other thing. Okay, so the book being written for Bree as a Deadeye. So this is actually something that I learned based on interviews with Diana as well as double checking. So the book, it doesn't appear, is dedicated to anyone. It's not dedicated to her. And Diana has confirmed that that book is just a history book. He wasn't looking for Brianna. He wasn't looking for, I believe it's supposed to be he was looking to see if Claire would go back, but he did not think his daughter necessarily would. However, there is something that he leaves for her that she actually finds in an echo in the bone. So inside some of her dad's notes, she finds a letter that was a draft. She could see that at once from the crossings out and the margin additions, the words circled with question marks, that being a draft, it had neither a date nor a salutation, but it was clearly meant for her. So I'm actually going to read this to you now, and then we'll discuss it here. So again, the book wasn't dedicated to her, but he left her a note. And this note said, "You've just left me, dearest Deadeye, after our wonderful afternoon at Sherman's, the clay pigeon place. Will you remember the name? My ears were still ringing. Whenever we shoot, I'm torn between immense pride in your ability, envy of it, and fear. I don't quite know when you will read this, or if you will. Maybe I'll have the courage to tell you before I die, or I'll do something so unforgivable that your mother will. No, she won't. I've never met a more so honorable as Claire, notwithstanding, she'll keep her word. What a queer feeling it is writing this. I know that you'll eventually learn who and perhaps what you are, but I have no idea how you'll come to that knowledge. Am I about to reveal you to yourself, or will this be old news when you find it? I can only hope that I've succeeded in saving your life either way, and that you will find it sooner or later. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That's terribly melodramatic, and the last thing I want to do is alarm you. I have all the confidence in the world in you, but I am your father and thus prey to the fears that afflict all parents, that something dreadful and unpreventable will happen to your child, and you powerless to protect them. And the truth is that, through no fault of your own, you are." And here he changed his mind several times and crossed it out. "Get to the point, Daddy. What are you talking about? And that's when she gets attacked by Rob Cameron. So we never fully finish that letter as far as I know. But it's very interesting because he just kept it in with a bunch of drafts. It isn't in an envelope or set aside for her anywhere. It's just mixed in with his things. And I don't know if he did that because he was afraid that it wouldn't end up getting handed off to her. But there's also, and this is a theory that I had not thought of at all. So I am definitely not claiming this my theory at all. But there's something to be said for the fact that those things were all jumbled up. He hadn't set aside a time for it. He didn't will this letter to be delivered to her should something happen to him. His book wasn't published yet. It was published after he died. And he died in a car accident that I actually, again, the outlandish, or not outlandish, but the Unhinged Outlander podcast, some of the ladies over there have the theory that he was actually killed prematurely for things that he was finding out. That is a very interesting theory, by the way. I don't mean us to speculate too wildly out of the nowhere, but very interesting. But anyway, the point being, though, the book was not dedicated to her. And in fact, if it was published post his death, and as Claire confirms, post her already coming back. So who was the one who fully pushed it through? Did his publisher already have it, or his agent already have it, or what happened with that there? It wasn't dedicated to Brie, and that note to her wasn't in it. It was just mixed in with his stuff. So maybe he wasn't ready to give it to her yet because it was a draft. Maybe he was planning what he wanted to write to her and where to leave it for her. And he was never able to give it to her. So was Frank maybe taken out for things that he knew and that he was discovering in history? Who's to say? But that is very fascinating. And there is, of course, that book that she has hinted at, Diana has hinted at, that's called What Frank Knew. And truly, I don't believe that book will go out until she's very much done with everything she has to do, because knowing what Frank knew is one of the greatest mysteries that we all have. But it's fascinating. So anyway, let me see if there's any other here. Oh, yes. No, maybe I won't mention that yet because that will definitely be in the next episode. I won't say it there. But yes, as I said, a bit of the change about how John is kidnapped. It is true, Percy's very nervous. He's being strong-armed into helping. But also Percy isn't there when he gets knocked out. He gets knocked out, and when he wakes up, he's in the presence of Richardson, and eventually Percy makes himself known to him, and we find out what Percy has to do with this, which, again, I will save. So those are, to me, the things that stood out as being changed. Obviously, pretty much everything at this point is changed based on a few of those things. That big thing, oh wait, let me tell you. Yeah, Fanny can't travel, so that's also a huge change because, again, she's not Faith. Does that mean she couldn't have the travel gene somehow? Sure, maybe. Why not? Because that's just what we do, apparently, right? And here's another thought. Maybe Master Raymond exchanged Faith for a child also of other travelers or something and just says that this is Bakhtarat's daughter. I don't know. Maybe that's being too nice of it. But, he would know who travelers are and things like that for sure. But, yeah, her being able to hear the buzzing and have the stone break in her hand, that's something that happens to, we've seen that Jem do that, when they're trying to see if they can travel, he can hear the stones making noise, and that's how they know that the Mackenzies can all go through the stones. So, yeah, that was just a weird choice. But otherwise, again, as I said, this was kind of lipstick on the pig. There were some great things. Again, the scene with Jamie and William, I don't know if I see that scene happening in the books. I don't know if it will. Again, William is a bit more buttoned up, a bit more repressed than this William we're seeing in the show. And I don't see him at this point yet confronting him about that. Now, again, if William were to get things about his his Lord John fully confirmed to him, maybe he'll be more at that point. But currently in the books, when he arrives at the Ridge, he needs help saving his dad. And there's nothing to do with him being there to talk to Bree or to vent about everyone lying to him. Like, he's there to get help. And in the scenes I've seen from Diana, as I said, you can look these up, scenes from book 10, it appears William's in, as good of spirits as possible. He's not viciously angry at Jamie or anyone. And one other point too, he is still very respectful for Claire, though. He calls her Mother Claire still, which I love. Like, there's one of the scenes is from Will's POV. And in his head, he calls Claire Mother Claire. And I just love that. So I did like the scene of her telling him to go talk to Jamie, even though he's being sassy with her, because that was very like Claire. Like, Claire was hardly in this episode at all, by the way, like, just hardly anything. But yeah, very interesting so far. So anyway, as I had kind of fallen off, I don't really feel like rating these anymore because just the hope of them being close is gone. But as for enjoyment level, this one was probably at a 6, probably. I'm still very upset with changes. I don't like the stuff with, like, Marcelly. Again, I love the actress Marcelly, but the stuff that's happening with her, the decision that she's making to literally go against one of Fergus's last wishes that he told her was that he didn't want this. And to have them making it about, like, oh, his only reason was because he didn't want to acknowledge someone else as his father, I think that is greatly simplifying it. Again, Fergus was very suspicious that there was other things going on. He's a very smart man. And I can understand her being, like, clouded by grief. Maybe what they'll do is have a scene in the next one. Maybe they will show her going to get this done and she will pick up on how weird everything is and be hesitant. Like, there's still time to pull that back. But I don't love what's with that. So yeah, I would maybe call it a 6.5 for this one. The scenes that were strong were very strong, but there's still so much deviation and change. It's just all over the place here. But anyway, I'll wrap this up. The sun is starting to go down. I want to get this video up to you guys tonight. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Welcome to everyone who's found me because of these recaps. I know I'm a bit unconventional and wacky about it, but I truly love these so much. And again, if I misspoke on anything, feel free to correct me down below. Just be kind. But otherwise, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now that we are over a bit of the shock of last week, let's maybe try to assess the angle that they're taking this in, if you like it at all, what you thought. What did you think particularly of Buck's reasoning, how he ended up there? What did you think of the scenes of Jamie and William? What did you think about the fact that we didn't talk about Fergus again after the opening scene? What did you think about Fanny and what she's working through with her faith, pun intended? And how about the reveal that she can travel? Which I guess, if we truly are committing to the fact that Faith lived, then yes, the grandchildren, it makes sense that they could, or great-grandchildren, I guess, that they could travel. Grandchildren, that they could travel because all of Bree's, well, 2 of Bree's kids can. We'll see about the 3rd one. We don't know. So yeah, there's all of that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for real now, and just 2 episodes left, which is absolutely insane. Thank you for being here. Like this video, hype this video, and I will also tag the Unhinged Outlander podcast. I am loving their stuff, especially if you are book readers. I think you will really appreciate their stuff because Jenny and Doreen particularly know their stuff. Okay, they know their stuff. And Doreen has actually interviewed Diana before, and that's where she got a lot of answers from her, which is amazing. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time.